now I would give you guys some advice, you can say, or suggestions, because some of the advice that I usually give to my students, I think is very useful, because a lot of people, when I see they're talking, they don't use this. You know, when we are talking, sometimes we need to remember words because we're learning this language and we're not very good. So when we are talking, we need to remember one word or two. What happens is, if I ask you a question, you have to think of the words. You have to think of the grammars and all that. So
Yeah.
if I ask you to read, you don't need any of those. You can just read. You don't need the vocabularies, you don't need the grammar, you can just read. So when we read, we focus on the pronunciations more. But when we ask and answer questions, we will focus on the vocabularies, the grammar, this side, this area. So when we are trying to remember words, if we are not used to speaking English, then it's hard for us to remember. But if we talk often, then the words are close to our head. It's easy to remember. So while we remember, while we try to remember one word, we can use some other words, such as if I ask you a question, if I say, tell me about this. So you can start with saying, I think it's a very good question. I would like to start by saying. So when you say this, you have a long time to think when you're saying, it's a very good question, it's a very interesting question. I can start by saying, and you can continue. So it will make you sound fluent to the other person who's listening to you. And you can also have time for you to think what you want to say next. And if you can practice this, if you can be used to this, you will actually see that it gives you a long time to think. So, such as, you can start by saying that it's a very good question. I would like to start by saying, and then you start. And then in the middle, you can say that I would also like to add that. You can continue. And when you want to end the conversation or the answer, you can say, finally, I should not forget to mention that. And then you can say your finishing ending words.
Okay.
So these are the ways that we can use, these are the words we can use to make a sound more fluent, and these are called redundant words in English. So redundant words means unnecessary words. And there were studies, and the studies suggested and showed that a native speaker will use this a lot, these redundant words. But a non-native speakers, they don't use it at all. So it's pretty obvious that one of the important reasons why they don't sound fluent. If it's your second language and if you're not using this, then of course, obviously, you would not sound like them, because you're not taking up these things that will make you sound fluent. Because if you ask a question to someone, they will say, let me think. I don't know how to answer that. I think I can answer you. See, I have a long time. I'm thinking, but I'm still talking.